Hey everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and welcome to the Inside the 49er show. Want to go ahead and do, if there's some questions and answers, we'll do some call-in if you want to do some call-in. I have a few topics that I want to talk about as well, so if we don't have very many people call in, that's okay. You got me. I'll go ahead and run through the topics that I prepared, and we'll go from there. Hope you all are doing well on this Thursday night. There's a game on right now. I'm not sure if you guys, some of you might be watching this as you're also checking out the big game between Arizona and New Orleans. Sounds like the Saints are already up on that one. So let's get this thing on the road. Got a few folks over in the comments section. Want to hit those up real quick. We got Patobo Hammer says, Jack Hammer, the great. Let's go Niners. Let's go. Great to have you on board, Patobo. And then also we have 420 Savage who says, bang, bang, Niner gang. We bounce back. Believe it. And then he also says, who's all back from injury this week? Perfect. That's a great lead in. And also, real quick, we got one other one. I'll come back to you. We got my man from the 49er Web Zone, Rohan Chakravarthi. What's up, my man? What's up, Rohan? Hey, Rohan, you want to talk? Come on in. We got the. I think I've got it over in the comment section. I don't. That's bad on me. It's in the notes. If you want to call in, it's in the description below. But here is the call-in link as well. So we'll get into that real quick before we get started. I already have one person on hold, Korean 49er. We'll get to him in just a second. But before we get there, I want to just run through really quick because this was asked. So let's get through a 49er injury update really quick from practice today. I wasn't in Santa Clara. Usually I'm able to get up to Santa Clara right now on Wednesday for one practice a week. Got some other things that take up my time. So I'm only able to get up there one day a week right now. Hopefully that'll be changing. But right now, just so you all know, the 49ers injury list took a little bit of a turn for the better today. There were quite a few folks that sat out practice yesterday. Samson Ebicom, Drake Jackson, Mike McGlinchey, Trent Williams was a limited participant yesterday. But Ebicom, Drake Jackson, Mike McGlinchey, all bracket practice today in a limited fashion. Nick Bosa as well. So Bosa coming back from the groin. He's practiced as a limited participant now both days. Samson Ebicom was out there as well. Saw some video of both of those two. They look like they're moving very well. Same with Drake Jackson and Mike McGlinchey being back is a positive. Jimmy Ward, an interesting piece on Ward today at practice. Did not have the club on his hand today like he did yesterday. He was going clubless today. And then Trent Williams. So pretty good group of guys coming back. Bosa, Ebicom, Jackson, McGlinchey, Ward, and Williams, all limited. Those are all guys who, except for Bosa and Williams, missed portions of practice yesterday. So it's good to have them out there. And then also Talanoa Hufanga and Travaris Ward. Those are two other names that people are usually going or should be interested in heading into this week facing the Chiefs. Talanoa Hufanga, there were reports that he was on the field at the beginning of practice for stretching. He was listed by the 49ers as a did not participate in practice. So it looks like he was just out there for the stretching portion, but not for the actual practice piece. And then Travaris Ward was out again as well. So not looking very good right now for Travaris Ward to play on Sunday. Talanoa Hufanga, it's all going to be about passing that concussion protocol. This is one of the reasons why Talanoa Hufanga fell to the 49ers in the 5th round. He had injury issues at USC. Some of them, I think, were concussions. I know he had an issue with his shoulder as well. So that plays a role into it. But there's your injury update. And so we're good to go there. Let me change this up, and we got a couple of folks that want to call in. So let's get some questions from the audience, and I'm going to change my screen up really quick, and then we'll get to it. Just got to protect myself with this because there were some riffraff the last time we did one of these shows. So let's jump on board. We got Korean 49er. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you tonight, Jack?
I'm great. It's Thursday night. It's downhill part of the week. I'm almost one day closer to game day.
Yes. So are you officially dry from that waterlogged Chicago trip?
Yeah. Finally, I think my shoes finally dried out. That was a lot of water that day.
Weather temperatures weren't very nice too. But it is what it is.
Yeah. It wasn't too bad. It was the one thing I noticed. It was definitely a humid day. So it wasn't so cold as it was humid, at least in Chicago at the stadium.
This is true. Questions about the offense.
Uh-huh.
To me, I see Jeff Wilson kind of becoming what Elijah Mitchell was last year. What I mean by that is Kyle is just pounding him on every running play, not giving uh, Jordan Mason any carries.
Hmm.
And to me, it just sounds like you're going to set up Jeff Wilson to be as injured as Elijah Mitchell is, or at least has been recently.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The running game as a whole right now is really interesting. I don't know if I would agree with you in terms of Jeff Wilson, of that, like them taking a pounding, and that's something that we need to worry about. But the running game as a whole is definitely something to worry about. I was looking through some numbers earlier today, and they're not running the ball, and that's partly why I think they are where they are. Um, the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo since 2013, since 2021, over the last year and plus, 13-9. They are 5-8 though when they run more than they pass. So that kind of tells you a lot about where this team is right now, because they're not anywhere close to what they normally are.
Yeah. To me, another wrinkle that I see that's no longer working is Debo in the backfield
Hmm.
because the defenses uh, are starting to key in on, hey, if Debo is in the backfield and you're not doing anything with a wrinkle or some kind of a trick, he's going to get the ball up the middle, and that's not what I don't believe Kyle wants Debo to run up the middle to 300, to a 600-pound wall of humanity ready to crush him.
Yes, I agree. I think teams have figured out that it's pretty you pretty much know where Debo Samuel is going to go when they line up in the shotgun with Debo Samuel in the backfield with Jimmy Garoppolo. You pretty much know. Let's say if he's on the right side of the quarterback, you pretty much know he's going to run to the left if it's a run, and it's probably going to go outside because they really don't want him to go up inside. So that it's pretty much once he's in the backfield, you can overload the side opposite of where he's lined up, and you can go after him. And we've seen defenses. I think we've seen defenses play them differently. I know today, listening to Chris Furster talk, he says the defenses aren't playing them any different with him in the backfield, but I think teams are overplaying him now, and the 49ers haven't shown an ability to really come back from that and counter the way that the defenses have adjusted to him. So I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, to me, if you have him do a lot of motions and can get those quick screens and those kind of those passes or runs, I think you
Hmm.
may have a better chance of actually getting more touches to Debo instead of relying on Jimmy to just throw it to Debo and seeing what happens there.
Yeah, I think the next evolution, and we kind of saw it in Denver, but I don't know if it's something that they can take advantage of with Garoppolo right now, is for to use him out of the backfield as a pass catcher. And you've already mentioned one, the screen game, which isn't anything new. We've seen them do that with him in the past. Uh, we've seen them utilize him in the passing game out of the backfield, often running those, choice or Texas routes, where he starts off like he's going outside, then comes back over the middle. Um, and then, they did run the one deep route against Denver. That's the one where Garoppolo basically tackled him on it. So, I would like to see Debo Samuel be utilized in the passing game more downfield, even if it's out of the backfield. Uh, Go back to like when his dad was here against teams that ran too deep on them. I remember Ricky Waters coming out of the backfield and running a seam route right up the middle, and Steve Young hitting him for a touchdown. I would like to see Debo used in that way. We saw that with Kyle Shanahan in 2017, shortly after Garoppolo got here, and they were trying to do that with Carlos Hyde, but Carlos Hyde isn't a wide receiver. So I think they need to have some kind of a uh, new thing to come off of what they've been doing to catch these guys off guard. Because right now, when Debo Samuel's in the game, it's going outside, and you know that if he was running a route out of the backfield, the chances are 75% of the time it seems like he's going to go over the middle. So I agree with you. They need to make some adjustments there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's nothing creative that Kyle's really doing to spark the offense in one fashion or another. I mean, it'd be nice if both can get a couple sacks and we can get some takeaways that way, and run them back for touchdowns or run them back into optimal field position for the offense. But we can't count on this defense with the amount of injuries it currently has to play at where they were earlier in the season, at least for right now.
Yeah, and even as rough as the game was for the defense in Atlanta, they only gave up 21 points, and there was plenty of opportunities as you go through that game, or at least as when I went through that game and did my film study and my film review for the channel, there were opportunities all over the field for them to put up more than 21 points. And we talk a lot about Jimmy Garoppolo, and we talk a lot about how you had the drop passes, right? You have the drop to Ray McLeod. You have the drop by Charlie Warner. But here's the problem with that is those were both second down plays, I believe. And in one case, you had a 3rd and 10. In the very next play, Jimmy Garoppolo drops back to pass. He has Deebo Samuel open over the middle on an underneath route where if he catches it, he's going to pick up the first down, and he doesn't throw it to him. He throws a check down instead to Juszczyk. They come back from the other one, the miss to Warner. Now it's 3rd and 5. They bring pressure off the right side. He has Jeff Wilson Jr. wide open right in front of him. He's sliding to his left to avoid the rush, and the ball hits the ground a yard in front of Wilson, and behind him. So they're like I tried to get the point across in my article is there were mistakes made by people, and then they compounded them throughout the game. It was whether it was Garoppolo or Deebo Samuel missing a block on the 3rd and 2nd and 3, excuse me. Missing the safety, and that safety then stands up Jeff Wilson Jr. for a gain of only 2, which leads to the Wilson run, the fumble, pick, scoop and score 6. It was constant throughout the game, and it's Garoppolo and it's other guys, but it's like you got to pick each other up, and they're not doing that right now.
Yeah, do you see that kind of being one of Kyle's unintended downfalls? Is we've always heard, in all these losses that we always hear Kyle saying, I didn't prepare the players adequately or something to that effect. To me, that just kind of sounds like, every player's going to make a mistake or two during the game. That's just going to happen. I understand that. But, when you keep seeing certain kinds of mistakes, I just wonder what the players are being prepared with. How the coaches are preparing the players for in situations and, down and distances and that kind of scenarios.
Yeah, there's definitely something that's there because what he does is it's always about execution, right? It's we didn't execute, and you see a lot of times it's like, yeah, they didn't execute, and so he kind of gets off like, oh, they didn't. The play, it was a good play call, but the guy didn't catch it. It was a good play call, but the quarterback threw a bad pass, and that's been at some point. It's your responsibility as the head coach to make sure that you're putting the right guy in the right position to make the play. And so for me, like this last game, it's like, why are you using Ray McLeod on that deep shot? And in my, in the article, I said, why are you doing that when you have Danny Gray on the sideline? And the reason I said Danny Gray on the sideline was because you drafted him to be your deep guy. But I also didn't realize that on that play, Deebo Samuel was standing on the sideline. So you're running that play with Deebo Samuel on the sideline to Ray McLeod. Okay. And then here's the other one too, Korean 49er. The interception that Jimmy Garoppolo threw in the fourth quarter. The play before that, they tried to take the deep shot that Brandon Ayuk, they got batted down because the corner did a really good job of running with it. Well, they come back the next play and they try to run that corner off so they can hit Deebo over the middle. And instead of having it be Brandon Ayuk that's running that deep route to threaten the corner, Brandon Ayuk's on the sidelines and they're running that with Willie Snead. Is there anybody watching this show who thinks that the Atlanta Falcons are worried about Willie Snead beating them deep? And there's so no wonder that the cornerback is playing it so well and is kind of just passing them off and seeing Debo come across and breaking it up the way that it did. It just the personnel usage in that game was just wild to me.
Yeah. Also, on that 8 minute drive, I didn't see any urgency. You're down 2 touchdowns and you're taking a lot of time off the clock. I was wondering, why do we not have? Why is Kyle or Jimmy not sensing urgency? Because you may not have a lot more possessions to try and score more points
I,
with that
I, I
strategy.
look I look at that one a little bit differently because I understand like the sense of urgency and that they weren't running a lot of no huddle. I think they got into no huddle a couple of times later on in that drive, but you had a shot play with 7 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in the game. You had Shanahan dial up a shot play to not Debo Samuel, to Brandon Ayuk, excuse me. And Ayuk gets the ball. It's a 37-yard gain. And the 49ers are going to have 1st and 10 at the Falcons 39. But because of a hold on Jake Brendel, now you're all the way back to your own 13. And I think that's, and now this is an offense this is an offense in which the deep shots are kind of manufactured. And because Garoppolo isn't going to take a lot of deep shots on his own unless he's told he has to. And that, like the throw to Ayuk on that play call is basically one where you're going to throw this ball deep, right? Because that's basically your only option. And once they get pushed back to the 13, then it's back to chug, 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 chug. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, like in terms of run no huddle, right? Is that kind of what you're saying you wanted to see him do more often?
A little bit more of that, but I also want to see them have a little bit more urgency because you'll never know how many more possessions you'll have to try and score more points.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Sorry, as the train passes by, take a second, listen to the train. That's one of the nice parts about the new studio is I got the train passes by every once in a while in the evening.
Was that the Caltrain?
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the Caltrain or if that's just that sounds a little loud for it to be the Caltrain, but I'm not sure. It could be the Caltrain though, because that's where we are, right in Central Valley. It goes right by us. So, the on the sense of urgency thing, and I understand like maybe going no huddle, what have you. I don't have as much. The problem with that whole situation is that they don't score, because if they score right there, then they're down 28-21, and we know they have to score twice. But if you just look at the way that the game played out, they still were able to use their timeouts and get point, and get another offensive possession. It was meaningless. That last possession was meaningless at that point. But you just can't work your way all the way down the field and then not finish it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's where my thinking is at. And one last point before you go to the next caller. Do you think with the Talanoa Hufanga head injury and what happened with Tua, do you think the NFLPA has anything they could say about what happened with him? Because they don't. I think with the sensitivity towards head injuries, I believe the NFL doesn't want more scrutiny on another player that had a head injury, got back in the game, and then was not able to, is now in the protocol the next day after playing a game when they cleared him.
The whole thing with that is that has to come from the NFLPA. They have got to put some pressure on the NFL there to make a change. And I know they tried to make a little bit of one in terms of where they have an independent spotter, and if they see anything that looks like a head injury, they're going to bring them out. I've heard a lot of people talking about this. I was listening to Steve Young talk about it last night. Thought he made a really good point in that if you're going to have an injury, or if you're even concerned that there's an injury, then you err on the side of caution. If you have to check somebody for a concussion, either they're out for the rest of the game, or you have some way other than this whole, like the way that they're doing it right now. So Steve Young says there's a tool that basically it's like, I don't know exactly what it is. It's like goggles or something like that they put on you, and you're following a dot with your eyes, a ball with your eyes, and then based off of that, it gives you a report, and it lets you know if you have a brain injury. And that's one way that they could solve this really quick. And if the guy passes it, then you know that he's okay. Throw him back in the game. If he doesn't pass it, he's done. That's one way. The other way is if you have to test them, they're done. Those are kind of your two options that I've heard.
Yeah, the problem is if with these with the sensitivity toward head injuries being more prevalent in today's NFL, what are parents are going to consider not even having their sons want to play tackle football, and that's unintentionally drives causes the sport to die a slow death, figuratively speaking.
Yeah, well, that's been going on. That's been going on for a while now, right? That goes back. That goes back over, I think, the last 10 years or so. With the whole, since CTE kind of became more mainstream in the understanding of it, and you're seeing all these things as far as parents not wanting their kids to play football and all that kind of stuff. So it's a part of it, but I don't think football is ever going to go away. I know my son plays football, and I know that the organization that he plays in had enough kids where they had to add 2 teams to their league, for our town to play in 2 different age groups and stuff like that. So there might be a few less, but I think it's always going to be around.
Yeah, I think so. Think so too. Just people are just getting more sensitive. It's understandable they don't want someone to go through anything that Dave Duerson or another player of that like that went through in the latter stages of their lives.
Yeah, that's right. And I heard I was listening to Matt Barrows talk on KMBR last night, and the 2012 team is coming in for their reunion on Sunday, and he didn't give a name, but he said that there was a player from that team that is dealing with CTE issues and stuff like that. So, that's only 10 years ago. So imagine those guys from back in the day that were even, it's an interesting thing that we know so much more about the brain and how it's being affected in these situations.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully the team will find a way to get a big win. I'm not expecting it, but hopefully they'll surprise us.
Hey, there you go. I look at this game against the Chiefs, and I'm looking at it very similarly to how I looked at the 49ers going into the game last year against the Rams at home. It's a situation against a team that appears to be way better, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I think it's a long shot for them to win. We'll see how it plays out.
They still have a puncher's chance. That's all you could ever really ask for.
Hey, that's right. It's like Rocky against Apollo Creed the first time, right?
Yep. So, all right. Thank you, Jack. You have a nice weekend.
Hey, you too. Thanks for calling in. I always like talking to you.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, that was a good one. I'm gonna jump right from Korean 49er, and let's see. Hopefully he's on board. I know he's supposed to be there. It says he's in there. Rohan, you around?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, my man. How are you?
I'm good. What's up?
I mean, we heard a bit of the topic in the last call with Korean 49er, but overall, I mean, the offense last week was a bit of the issue. I know you watched the film. I watched it too. I was going to ask a couple of your opinions. Execution, right? That's the issue with execution. You pointed out how Kyle Shanahan normally indicates how that's the issue, and he's not wrong. Execution has been the issue for the 49ers really this entire year when they've lost and even sometimes when they've won. What's kind of your main takeaway on that issue? And I won't say assert blame
on the
topic of execution. What's kind of like your takeaway from the season? You can also talk specifically about this game, but what are you kind of thinking in that realm?
Well, it's like the old coach of the original coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers said when he was asked about his team's execution in the first half of the game or after the game, he said, they said, "Hey, Coach, what do you think of your team's execution?" And his response was, "I'm in favor of it." So, no, and that's the thing, right? Is this team right now is not executing. They haven't been executing really all year long. They had some execution against against the Seahawks, you know, it was a little hit and miss with Trey Lance the first couple series, but they scored the first one. I'm kind of hazy on the beginning of it. I know they scored, they got a field goal, then they had the long run before he got injured, kick another field goal, and then they put up 3 touchdowns after that. But
yeah,
you know, it's just, I think, you know, that was a good one. And then against Carolina, they look good, but against Carolina, they're playing against, you know, Carolina has their best players out, and the 49ers already had the advantage in terms of personnel in that going into that game anyway. So,
right.
you know, you can't really point to. Kyle Shanahan says this too, and this is accurate. You can't point to one issue. You can't say that it's just the quarterback. You can't say that it's just the running back. You can't say that it's just the offensive line. You can't say that it's just this wide receiver.
Right.
Because it's not. It's all those guys at different times throughout the game. So the specific game against Atlanta, it's deep. Like I already ran through real quick. Deebo Samuel misses a block. Next play, Jeff Wilson Jr. fumbles.
That's the one where oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. He missed it on the edge, right?
Yeah, they were trying to run that same counter play that they ran in the beginning of that they busted against Carolina. It's a similar one where you know, basically everybody's blocking down and then you're pulling the backside guard and either the fullback or the tight end. You know, it's basically like the old counter trade that the Washington football team used to run back in the days of Bill Gibbs. So they're trying to run that, and Deebo Samuel's supposed to block down. The safety comes down in the box, so that becomes his man, and he misses him completely. Barely gets a hand on him, and that guy stands him up. So now instead of having a first down, now you're stuck in a 3rd and short. Jeff Wilson Jr. fumbles as he's falling to the ground. Ball goes the other direction. You have the miss to you know, the 2 missed deep balls that are dropped, but then you have bad throws on 3rd down that
from Garoppolo.
From Garoppolo, and then you have the miss. You have a bad throw from Garoppolo to Ayuk on the deep ball, which leads to the interception on the next play. I don't know why Willie Snead's in the game, and that kind of stuff.
I mean, I didn't like it. Like that 2-play sequence, I think, is an interesting talking point. First play call is nice, right? Because you have the clear out. The defense shifts to the crosser route. You have the clear out then in one-on-one coverage. If Garoppolo leads him, that's probably a touchdown. If not, 50-50 ball. Could have been a PI, could not have been. The second one, you run the exact same concept, though, with that crosser route, and then you have Willie Snead instead of Ayuk as the clear out. I know you mentioned, I think Ayuk was out on that play, right? On the following play, you mentioned, or it was him or Deebo Samuel, but it's Willie Snead running that route, and he's not a threat. And so that safety or that cornerback understands the crosser and pawns it off that deep route, leaving one-on-one because it's Willie Snead and nobody's going to throw to Willie Snead.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was Willie Snead in place of Brandon Ayuk. And the other one I was mentioning when I did say Deebo, that was the deep ball to Ray McLeod. You're taking a deep shot to Ray McLeod. I just don't understand, like, I mean, I get every once in a while you're gonna take shots to guys that aren't your top guys. That happens, but for me, Ray McLeod, while if Deebo Samuel's on the field, that's one thing. That was the second play of the second half. It's not like Deebo Samuel was tired, you know.
Yeah,
and then the one to Charlie Warner. I don't know. At some point, somebody's going to have to explain to me why they keep throwing the ball deep to Charlie Warner. Because that was the second one that he's dropped, right? Because I think he dropped one against the Rams, correct, on Monday night.
Yeah, he hasn't. I mean, his hands haven't been. It's not the best part of his arsenal. He's a blocking tight end, and so if you're going to play a tight end out of the slot, it better be one that you trust to catch the ball. Because on that play, I didn't think Warner was a threat at all to be a blocker. And that removes any value of a decoy.
Well, and there you go. And that's the thing, right? Is they were in 22 personnel. So I kind of get it, but I don't at the same time because they're in 22 personnel. So they're trying to get the Rams, the Falcons in their base D. But then they go empty.
Yeah.
They have both the running backs on the outsides. They have Ayuk in the slot, Kittle in the slot, and they have the inline tight end as Warner. I don't know. I get I kind of get what they're doing, but at the same time, man, Ross Dwelly has only played 13 snaps in the last 4 weeks. And Ross Dwelly has better hands than Charlie Werner. And he has, the last game he played in, he got a touchdown pass.
Right.
He's not, I know he's not George Kittle and when it comes to the catch and run, but I don't think he's that much worse of a run blocker than Charlie Werner, really, when you look at the two.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree here. And this kind of leads me to my next point. I feel like I've been a little more critical of Kyle Shanahan than I have been in past weeks. And I'm a Kyle Shanahan supporter compared to many others. And by supporter, I don't mean I'm a stan or anything. I just believe he's a good head coach and that his play calling is honestly at this point underrated because so many people just point to that, not understanding what the issue is with the 49ers. They just say Kyle and his play calling, it's been an issue. It's bland. It's whatever, right? I think his play calling at this point has become underrated for a fact, but I've been more critical about the other aspects of him as a head coach. What are your kind of takes on him this season as a head coach overall?
Well, for me, I don't the plays that he's dialing up. I think he's doing a pretty good job from a play call standpoint. I think he's kind of doing a good job on that. I should say I'm gonna have to dial that one back in a little bit, but like I look at the game and it's not like he doesn't have receivers running open, but you can't keep having your back. You can't just keep falling back on execution.
You have to understand why.
Can't execute,
yeah,
if your guys can't execute what you're calling, then you need to either call different plays. Or you need
it's personnel. Yeah, get the right players on the field.
Yeah, that's one of them. Or you're over, your player evaluation is wrong. There are issues there, and because I've said this like with Shanahan for a long time because the execution thing has always been there, right? And in the early days when they were losing a lot in 17 and 18, I was talking about it, and I had. The other person would argue back with me about, how great the play design was and all that kind of stuff. And my response to him was, yeah, but as a coach, your job is to get the players to execute. And at some point you get fired because you're losing games, and you're losing games because your players aren't executing. So lack of execution is what gets you fired as a head coach. If your team is executing at a high level, you will never get fired. Right. I mean, think about that for a second. And that's how silly, just always coming back to that really is in some ways. I think he's a good leader. I think players play hard for him, but there's something that's missing, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. If I had to put my finger and say it's one thing, it's a lack of attention to detail. That's the only thing that I could think of.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that to me, I don't know if it's evaluation, or to me, it might be that honestly, he trusts himself too much to the point where he believes that because he's calling the pristine play call, he can put out whatever personnel and it's going to work. But some NFL players are better than other NFL players. We've seen it with the drops. Ray McLeod, Charlie Warner. I think he should have gone different ways in both plays. And I'm not going to say that like a lot of people have said Danny Gray. I don't know if that play gets any better with Danny Gray, just because I don't know how he runs that route. Danny Gray hasn't been the most pristine route runner from my own vision, and I'm a guy who supports Danny Gray. I thought he was a great draft pick, and he was the guy who I wanted 3 months before at 105. So I really I like that pick, but he isn't a great route.
I lost you. Can you guys hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me? All right, so it must be Rohan. It looks like we lost your connection there. Thanks, guys, for the update over there. It looks like we might have lost Rohan. Rohan, come back when you get a chance. It looks like you broke up on us.
Are we good now?
No, yeah, now you are. Now you are. What'd you do?
I don't know. I did nothing. I don't even got a camera on.
Maybe your take was too hot.
That's probably what it is, because you normally come with the cold sauce. All your stuff sucks. So maybe the
Uh-huh.
camera just couldn't handle me coming out here with my stuff. You know what I mean?
That's right. Well, because I'm pretty casual usually.
Yeah,
So
I mean, your only hot takes are stuff about soap boxes and stuff like that.
nice. Okay. Well, where were we? Where were you?
What were we talking about? Oh, I was just saying, I don't think the defense changes on that play to Ray McLeod if you insert Brandon Ayuk, because when you look at the defensive coverage, they had two on George Kittle with the bracket because it was a high to low, or sorry, not, but no. Going back, you look at that play. McLeod he essentially had two defenders on him. There was a guy in the short range who in zone coverage doesn't pick up as he goes to deep. Then it's against the safety with a guy helping coming over to help. But that's a great ball by Garoppolo to where if you've got a good runner who's making a good play, I probably makes that catch.
Yeah, and whether it's Ayuk or Debo, one of those two has to be out there.
Right,
And
definitely.
that's really what it comes down to. And then
Yeah,
here's the one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I was going to have this be a topic, and I've got you on here, so I might as well just bring it up really quick. Was this whole thing with the 49ers offensive identity? I got into a discussion with Johnny Dells, who does a YouTube channel here as well, on Twitter today, and I kept asking him to tell me what the 49ers identity is, and I never really got an answer from him. And I asked on Twitter what the 49ers identity was, and I didn't really get an answer from anybody there either, other than that it's not good. And I let me ask you, Rohan, what do you, if you had to say what the 49ers offensive identity is, what would you say that would be?
So here's how I'll break it down. The 49ers offensive identity over the past couple of years has been a run first team that incorporates play action to open up the entirety of their offensive playbook. That's not the case this year. Their rushing efficiency has declined significantly, and half of it has to attribute to the quarterback change because Trey Lance opened up 11 on 11 football, meaning you could operate at a zone read, which is statistically why the 49ers were 12th in rushing efficiency with Trey Lance and 29th in terms of EPA per play without Trey Lance. And they were running at over 5 yards a clip with Lance, only 3.8 yards with Garoppolo at the helm. And it's nothing against Garoppolo necessarily. It's just not a part of his arsenal. And so to me, I don't think that's their identity anymore. Right now, I think their identity is a team that looks to dominate time of possession, but also tries to incorporate deep shots, shot plays, and bigger plays, these chunk plays, these that occur here and there. To move their offense down the field. So I don't know how you can maybe sum it up into words, but to me, I think it's an offense that is a balanced attack that tries to rely on the pass, but doesn't really have either facet of their offense that they can rely upon consistently to get them points.
Okay, you mentioned balanced attack. Here, then just let me give you some numbers really quick. This is the last four. This is the last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
They've run 219 offensive plays in the last 4 games. Of those 219 offensive plays, 86 have been runs. That's 39% of their offense has been runs over the last 4 weeks.
Okay.
That's
not balanced to me, but yeah.
No, it's way off. When you look, and then just to kind of, and that's really driven by 2 games. It's driven by the game against the Broncos, which is an odd one because yes, it's driven by the Broncos and the Falcons because those 2 games they ran the ball 19 times against Denver, which is odd when you consider where they were in that game. That they only ran, but I think some of it was they weren't getting first downs. They weren't running very many plays to begin with, and then at the end of the game they were throwing the ball a lot. That could be part of it there. But then last week's different. They're at 41-16, and they gave up on the run in the first quarter. They gave up on the run, halfway through the first quarter. They decided that they were gonna go bombs away, and they got out of their game. And here's the thing: like they had 41 dropbacks. Or 41 passes. I don't even know how many dropbacks it was. Jimmy Garoppolo, when he throws the ball 40 or more times in his career, is 3-4. the 49ers over the last 2 years, when they throw the ball more than they run, are 5-8. So you need to still, like, there was plenty of time in that game for them to still run their offense, especially, I guess it's interesting. I think maybe part of what it is maybe part of it is because they're not running the ball well, and so they're throwing the ball, but some of those throws, if you look at the game plan this last week, are more screens because they ran a lot of screens in the first half.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I involve, if it's a screen pass, I think it's a run. Like, that's how I kind of view it. It's a screen pass, but to your better players, because right now their running backs are not good. I mean, you can put it however you want. Jeff Wilson Jr. has been good up until this past week, but the reason that their running backs aren't good is because they are, in a way, propped up by the scheme. But I wrote an article this week on why the 49ers running game has declined. And to me, it was because it's become one-dimensional. You've always had an inside-outside approach. You've had a guy who can stretch the field with the outside zone and a guy who can pound it on the inside with the inside zone. In 2019, when the 49ers ranked 7th in offensive efficiency, you had the combination of Tevin Coleman, a guy who averaged four yards per carry but was a grinder, and then Raheem Mostert, who could stretch the field vertically. And then you look in 2021, first half efficiency was poor, and that was with Elijah Mitchell running at his pace. Second half, though, you now incorporate Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel, two different running styles, and that creates a multi-dimensional attack. Without Elijah Mitchell right now, you only have a one-dimensional attack with Jeff Wilson, and defenses now with 5 years of experience with Jimmy Garoppolo in this offense are prepared. That's why I think it's declined, and that's why I didn't mind as much when they went for a centralized attack in the air last week, because if they execute, it worked.
Yeah, I think the thing is that you need to have the threat of getting. You need to have guys that can do different things.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons that they were so good, like in 19, was you had, you mentioned it. You had Tevin Coleman. He was your grinder guy, right? And so, but they would try to get him outside a little bit here and there. And then they would have Matt Breida was their home run hitter in the first half of the season. But Breida wasn't just an outside runner. He was good between the tackles.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Raheem Mostert. He's more of an outside guy, but he can run between the tackles because he can hit the hole so quick. The Flyers don't have that right now. I mean, they do. They have it, right? They do, but where is it? That's up here somewhere. They have that guy that can run it and can hit the hole. And where is it? Gosh darn it. Come on, Jack.
Come on, Jack.
You suck.
Jack blew it.
I did. It's anyway. We all know who it is. He's not playing. It's the rookie, Jordan Mason.
Yeah, Trey Lance. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Even Trey Lance. Trey Lance
he's a running back.
Trey Lance as a runner is a fullback.
Yeah.
But
but you're right. It is Jordan Mason.
It's right in front of me. Dang it. Savory Movie 197. Can we talk about Jordan Mason has not received any touches? Thank you. And because here's the thing. Jeff Wilson Jr., really good back between the tackles. Boom. You try to run him outside, not so iffy. Teams aren't going to worry about you running him around the edge. The Flyers don't have a guy right now that can get around the edge other than Deebo Samuel. But teams know that Deebo Samuel, you don't want to run him between the tackles. So they're going to take their chances and overplay you on the outside because they know you don't really want to run in the middle. And plus, Deebo Samuel, for as good as he is, he's not a running back. He doesn't have the vision of a running back. He's just running as fast and hard as he can go most of the time when he's back there. He's not running like, a running back would.
Mm-hmm.
Get Jordan Mason in the game. Get him on there because
it's inexplicable. And this, in my opinion, is honestly Kyle Shanahan's biggest problem that I've had in 2021. Apart from game management, this has been his second biggest problem. Get him in the game. I'm assuming you've been writing about it. I've been writing about it since week 3. Jordan Mason, he deserves carries. He's given every opportunity he's gotten, including the one carry that he's gotten this season. He's just done well with it. Get him in the freaking game and really create a diverse approach, because this was the one solution I had in that article, what I was talking about. This is the one solution I had. Utilize Jordan Mason, make your running game multidimensional for like it's been before, and that's where that efficiency goes from 29 up to average at least.
Yeah, that is the issue. So I think, they're not, there's a lot of lack of execution issues. Those are still going to be there, but your bread and butter has always been the run. So why not? And the thing about Jordan Mason, at least what I like about Jordan Mason, from what I've seen of Jordan Mason, is he gives you the Matt Breida, Raheem Mostert speed with thickness and size to do that in between the tackles on a regular basis. And we saw him do that in the preseason.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen him do it in the regular season because they haven't given him any opportunities. He has one carry, and the one time they gave him the ball, he picked up 7 yards. Imagine that. I mean, there was I'm old enough to remember, like I tried to find this on, doing a Google search, but I couldn't. But I have this vivid recollection of John Madden talking about running backs and saying, running backs, you're going to know right away if a running back's good, because it's not like they develop their vision all that much once they get there. They either see it or they don't. They don't really change all that much. They're going to show you right away what they are. And Jordan Mason is a guy who I think has shown us right away as a runner what he is. If he struggles in pass protection, then coach him up. Coach him up. You're now.
That's what you do coach him up for. That's the trait that he needs to be coached up if that's the problem.
If his issue is pass blocking, you've had him on your roster since what, May? You had him through OTAs. You had him through minicamp. You've had him in your camp since July now, straight. You've had him on your team for multiple practices during training camp, 3 days a week, 3 practices, not counting walkthrough on Saturday. If he's not getting up to speed on pass blocking, then that's on you as a coach, as the running back coach, and as the offensive line coach, to not get him up to speed. We're now 6 weeks past training camp, and this guy can't pass protect, and that, or whatever. If that's the issue, if the issue is he doesn't know the plays, again, what are you doing as coaches?
I mean, I think that's a fair assessment, right? Like, where is the improvement currently? And why isn't a guy who has done very well being implemented into the game plan? I think that somebody should ask Kyle Shanahan that question, because it's a very valid question. And there's a clear solution to the running game woes, and the 49ers aren't implementing it.
Well, at least we think there's a clear solution, right?
You got to try it out, though, right? I mean,
yes.
If what's working right now, it isn't working. Jeff Wilson Jr. had 7 carries for 25 yards, and the 49ers, like, the reason everybody says we aren't going to the run. I don't think if we went to the run with the same personnel that we had, we would have seen nearly any better results. We probably would have seen worse results offensively if we keep running Jeff Wilson Jr. through the tackles and Tevin Coleman doing Tevin Coleman things, which is really being inefficient as a runner right now. So to me, you got to create a spark offensively, and there's at least the potential of a solution there who has shown the capability before. Implement it in.
Yeah, at least give it a shot. At least give it a chance, because right now you're averaging about 3.5 yards per carry with who you're putting out there. I understand Jeff Wilson Jr. and he's doing, his average is pretty good, and I'm not gonna crap on him. 7 carries for 25 yards is almost 4 yards a carry. Not really all that bad. So, but you don't have anybody else. Tevin Coleman should not be touching the ball over anybody else that you've had on your roster all season. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. You are not wrong there.
All right. I need to settle down before I get myself into trouble.
It's okay. You can go talk about soapboxes again. I'm
there
sure
you go.
That'll jazz you up.
Well, I love talking about soapboxes. I like to stand on them too. Rohan, it was great. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
Always appreciate you, my man. Have a good weekend.
All right. You too. We'll talk soon. We got to get together again.
Yes, sir.
All right. Take care. All right. Last caller of the night. We got Jaguayo 56. He's in the house. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Jack. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm fired up. Rohan got me all fired up on Jordan Mason.
No, that's okay. I don't understand that one either. I mean, if he's if he made your team, use him. You're never gonna know what you have if you don't use him. Maybe he can surprise Shanahan, and he can have a breakout game. And there you go. We at least got some clarification on what type of runner he is. And until you use him, you don't know. So yeah, that's a head scratcher right there. I think though the Niners right now are like in no man's land as far as like the identity,
Mhm.
because I don't remember, or if you remember, the last time that Jimmy Garoppolo threw for almost 300 yards and we ran for 50. I don't remember the last time that happened. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't remember a time where it was so unbalanced. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to believe that are the defensive coordinators of the other teams, are they catching up to the scheme of us, of Shanahan, as far as like, we're going to stop the run, we're just going to force Jimmy to execute, and the failure to execute has really been our downfall. If you just take Atlanta, the drop passes, the fumble, the early fumble by Wilson, the penalties when Brendel, when they completed it to Ayuk, all of those combined, it would have probably been a better chance to win if that hadn't happened. But I also think that we have to look at it and be real about it, and say that maybe Atlanta with Arthur Smith, they're a little bit more in sync with themselves, like they know who they are, and maybe they just were a little bit hungrier and they executed their plan, because they out 49er the 49ers. They ran the ball, and then with Mariota we couldn't contain them.
That's you're on the money with that one. Uh, you knew the 49ers knew coming into this game what Atlanta was going to do. D'Amico Ryan said it on Thursday of last week out in West Virginia, that what was going to happen, and that the Falcons were going to run the ball, and then they were going to run the ball, and then they're going to run it some more. And so they knew what these guys were going to do, and Atlanta came out, and what did they do? They ran the ball, they ran it, and then they hit you with a pass over the middle, and then they ran it, and they ran it, and they ran it, and then they threw it into the end zone. But they kept running the ball throughout the game. It was so good. And then
The other, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the other thing is that kind of bothers me and frustrates me is how many times do we have to play a mobile quarterback and not be able to contain him? I mean, you would think that we'd be masters of that, because we see Kyler Murray twice. We used to see Russell Wilson twice, and and we haven't figured it out. And I don't understand that. What's going? And I know, okay, I can take into account that we had 12 injured defensive players. I get it. And it would probably might be a different story. But either way, whoever's in there has to be able to execute Ryan's plan to contain him, set the edge, don't let him get out. And that frustrates me. I don't understand that either.
Yeah, no, it's the mobile quarterback thing has been a problem for the 49ers all along, and they have no. It doesn't. It seems like it almost is like they. I know they have a plan, but it's almost like the minute that they try to divert from it just a little bit, they get burned. We saw Russell Wilson. They kicked his butt for most of that game, but then when the chips were on the table in the fourth quarter and they needed to get a stop, they couldn't contain him, and he either scrambled or he moved around and was able to find a receiver while moving around. We saw the same thing on Sunday. Third and 12 from your own 28-yard line or something like that,
Yep.
and you send a blitz and you get out of position and he sprints up the field for 15 on you, first down. And they a little bit later they run their little zone read thing and Samson Ebicom just flies down inside and the quarterback runs around the edge for 20 yards because there's no linebacker coming over the top or no secondary level player. They they had a plan, but they just were not executing it on defense either.
Yeah, and I just want to talk maybe a positive thing. Let's talk about positives. I
Yes.
think that coming into this season, I was really, really worried about the offensive line, with Banks, Burford, McClinchy coming back from a really bad injury, and Brendel. And overall, I think the weakest one has been Brendel probably, but I've been pleasantly surprised with Banks, Burford, and McGlinchey has, he sucked it up and he's played pretty good for coming back from such a bad injury. So that's a bright spot going forward. It's a long season, and I think as it goes on, I think they're going to gel. They're going to be a little bit better as we go. So I think that's a bright spot. The other thing is, I think Jimmy's playing better, and I think there's some merit to what he said on that one presser that they asked him about his injury, his shoulder, and he said it gave him time to really build up his strength on his core and his lower body, and it seems like he's throwing it better than I've seen him throw it. And so those are bright spots. But I was going to ask you one last question about what do you think about Brunskill going forward? What's the plan for him? Is it for him to take over for Brendel maybe? Is it just to be the guy wherever he's needed for injuries? And also, is it Cal? Where do you think is it Cal? You think he's going to be groomed for the center, or what do you?
Well, I think Zakel is being groomed to be an interior guy. So, in listening to Chris Firster talk today, it sounds to me like he's pretty much your interior. He can play any of those three spots. Same kind of thing with Brunskill. I think they're pretty happy with what they have in Burford, and I think they're pretty happy with what they had in Banks, even though they've kind of been rotating them in.
Yeah.
The one spot that you look at the numbers, and by the numbers, the 49ers offensive line looks pretty good. But the one thing that doesn't show up with a lot of these stats is the penalties. And
yeah,
you go back to the first caller tonight was Korean 49er, and he was talking about the lack of urgency from the 49ers offense on that long drive. But
yes.
The thing with that is, on that long drive, the 49ers, they picked up 100 yards of offense, don't score after starting on 99. And that's even with 42 yards getting called back because of two penalties on Brendel. Brendel gets called for illegal man downfield on a completion to Kittle. He gets called for a hold on a 37-yard completion to Ayuk, and then he gets called for a bad snap. So that's those are huge penalties. And I think the guards are okay. The center is their issue when you look at the offensive line. If you want, just looking at positives for a second, getting away from what I just said, the 49ers offensive line hasn't allowed a sack or didn't allow a sack last week against Atlanta. That's the second time now that they've done that this season. The last time was against the Rams. There's only two teams in the NFL that have been able to do to match the 49ers, and that is the Chargers and Detroit are the only two other ones that have been able to go through two games without giving up a sack. So they've been solid, but it's the little things around that have been a problem this year.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts right now, Jack. And you know what? I'm being optimistic. I think we're going to beat the Chiefs, the biggest upset of the season, and we're going to go 28-27. I think we're gonna beat them. Hey, just call me crazy, but that's okay. I'm optimistic. I think we're gonna do it, and you take care. And again, always appreciate talking to you. And you're always level-headed. You always give us the insights of what's going on. And I think the faithful really appreciate your hard work. Keep it up, and we'll talk to you some other day.
Hey, wow! Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate everything you just said, and thank you so much for calling in and talking to me tonight.
All right, you take care.
All right, you too. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, I'm going to wrap this up really quick. I'm going to say this. I like the energy that Jaguayo came with there at the end of that. Saying that he thinks that the 49ers are going to win this game. I don't think it's completely. Is it a little crazy? Maybe a little bit, and that's okay. Um, here's the thing. I think the 49ers have a chance to win this game too if they don't turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, I think it's going to be a really close game. If they turn the ball over a couple times, they're going to get blown out because I don't think they can keep up with the Chiefs unless Patrick Mahomes throws some interceptions, which he doesn't do very often. He's only thrown 4 all season, and 2 of those came last week against the Bills. So if the 49ers turn this thing over, I think this game gets away from them. If the 49ers played their game, don't make very many, don't turn the ball over, even if they make some of the other mistakes that they make, I think they're going to be in this game until the end. Not sure if they're going to win. I'll be thinking about that throughout the night. I'll be on that tomorrow when I do my show with Rob over on his channel with Rob Shue. But it's going to be interesting. And one last thing before I click off tonight. There's been a lot of talk around Christian McCaffrey, and I find it hard to not just go ahead and toot my own horn a little bit on this one. If you guys remember, maybe you don't. If you follow me on Twitter, maybe you saw it. But right after the game, there was a lot of talk about Brian Burns the week leading up to the game against the Panthers, and even after the game against the Panthers. And after I watched Christian McCaffrey play against the 49ers, even though his team lost, it was pretty clear that Christian McCaffrey was the best player on the field for Carolina, and the things that he was able to do against this 49ers defense. And I watched a lot of Christian McCaffrey during his time when he was at Stanford. I've been a big fan of Stanford for a long time. And, this here, if the 49ers can pull off the trade, because what I said is, Brian Burns is nice, but the guy the 49ers should trade for is Christian McCaffrey. And we've heard that start to heat up quite a bit. There was even an article that came out today that it's maybe not as crazy as people think, and that there's definitely some ways that this can happen. Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers, you go back to the discussion that I had tonight with Rohan, as far as the 49ers needing to have somebody, an explosive element in their backfield that can run inside and outside. That's Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey also adds the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, which means you don't have to utilize that role for Deebo Samuel all the time. You can keep Deebo Samuel out where you're paying him. So for me, if the 49ers are able to bring in Christian McCaffrey, you do it. And you work on the contract, but you bring in the best players possible. 49ers have some room. If they're making a trade and it involves a player, there's going to be some salary cap that's created as well. But if there's a way that you can get Christian McCaffrey on the 49ers, I think it's a no-brainer. I understand the recent injury history. This is a guy that played 16 games, all 3 of his first 3 years. He's been dealing with some stuff, since then. Get him out to San Francisco. Get him back out here where he spent some time. Get him on the grass at Levi Stadium, and I think that would work. So, just wanted to throw that out there. I'm kind of tooting my own horn a little bit because I was on the Christian McCaffrey train a couple weeks ago, saying that the 49ers should look into him as a trade partner. Actually had him on the article that I wrote yesterday for 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That's the Inside the 49er blog over there, which is why this is the Inside the 49er show tonight. So just wanted to kind of bring that up. Christian McCaffrey, somebody that the 49ers should go after, fits a need, and I think helps them find that offensive identity that we keep talking about them not having right now. So before I head out, just want to say thanks to everybody who took the time to check this out, whether you're checking this out live right now. For all of you in the comment section, thank you. Those of you that are watching later, I appreciate you as well. You guys can do me a favor before if you log off of the broadcast, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Really appreciate it. Trying to grow this channel out and going to keep building it up, have some ideas of things we need to do. And it all starts with you guys. So if you have some ideas and put them in the comment section on things you want to see me do differently to improve the experience for you. And I'm going to keep working hard on my end. Have a great night, everybody. I will talk to you all soon. Take care, everybody.